I applaud your team for bringing this forward. Said, while you don't have the authority to create such a new agreement, I think it's your job to continue to look for, to steal some thoughts from my experience, 40 years of WellSpan and Good Samaritan Hospital, is that the WellSpan initiative is always find a better way. We should always be looking for opportunities to improve what we're doing, and in this case, it's not maybe necessarily improving the process, but improving the strength of the services we provide, and that's when I compare and look at all emergency services, police, fire, ambulance, and HazMat. We're looking at dwindling resources, expensive resources, and if we can find a way to do it better and minimize any downside risk, that's what we're looking to do. And so I, again, applaud you for bringing it forward and have the opportunity to discuss it at a high level here. And the other thing I wanted to say about WellSpan is we, 10 years ago, became part of a merged health system. And while I don't like every single aspect of it, the things I don't like are we're so big it's hard to even know to who to pick up the phone and call some days. We have 25,000 employees throughout the whole system. But when I boil it down to our mission and the care that we provide, we are able to do it much better. And quite frankly, we as a solo hospital may not have survived COVID without being part of a larger system. And so I look back, and again, our ability to do things proactively is 10 times better than it used to be. We were very limited, and now we're doing a lot more in the community proactively to keep people healthy. So I think that there's a lot of similarities between the two. So I'll turn it over to you, Bob. We want to introduce your team and then
certainly forward. I am Bob Dowd, Director at the Department of Emergency Services, and to my right I have Deputy Director of Emergency Management here at Verna. To my left I have Special Operations Chief Jason Weikel. We're here this morning, this afternoon. So you know.
Morning,
Sean. Say this morning, yeah. Here this afternoon to talk about this agreement and you know, seek feedback from the board and also make sure that what we draft as a next step aligns with the board's desires. You know, if I probably should have titled this at the very top as mutually beneficial to your points. Anything we do is going to benefit Lebanon County as well as Lancaster, but anything we do needs to benefit Lebanon County, and that is the theme of the agreement here. And not only benefit us, but protect us. You know, we're talking about structuring this in such a way that we're very well protected from both a degradation of services standpoint and from a financial burden standpoint.
to clarify up front too, we're only talking about HazMat services.
Correct. Yeah, this is just for HazMat. And Pennsylvania Act 165 requires that each county have a designated HazMat team. Lancaster reached out to us and asked if we would be willing to serve that role for them, and that's what this conversation is all about. So a couple of key points.
Bob, before you go into that, we want to talk just in general for the public's sake, is just what are the most common types of things that you're responding to from a HazMat standpoint, types of things that happen?
That's a question best answered by you.
Diesel fuel spills is that is number one instance that we respond to tractor trailer accidents with their saddle tanks leaking the fuel. Generally anything over 45 gallons is considered, affecting 45 gallons is considered a HazMat incident. If it's being released uncontrollably, especially if it hits the soil or a waterway or has any chance of having a hazard towards the public. But yeah, that's the number one.
Is it true too that your job is primarily to contain it, that you bring in somebody else then to clean it up?
Right. So we contain it. We're the emergency aspect of it. We're not a cleanup company. They contract the responsible party or who's involved contracts a cleanup company, come out and mitigate the soil. You might drive down 81 and see plastic down on the median of the highway. That's the cleanup company that's taking processes of mitigating that contaminated soil and replacing it and replanting the grass. That's not us. That's not our purview. our purview strictly the emergency response aspect.
And that would be the same for Lancaster County. That's,
Yeah.
once the emergency is handled, once the leak is stopped and, you know, we mitigate any further risk to the public, DEP, correct me if I'm wrong, DEP normally handles everything after that as far as making sure that's cleaned up correctly and reporting processes and soil testing later on if necessary.
Go ahead.
May I ask, Gary, is this something that has changed? It seems to me I don't know if it was when we established HazMat or got the garage from the city over here, but it was something about that you don't want to wait for the cleanup crews to come, you want to get there first, and that's why we had to have a HazMat team. Has that changed?
Can't speak to that because that was way before my time as far as why they needed a garage other than the equipment that they had needs and we have needs a garage to sit in a garage and not out in the open. 1990 was when it was required for established by law, both federal and state law, that requires the establishment of HazMat teams or the ability for the counties to have an emergency response HazMat team.
Okay.
Nothing's changed with that. That's been, every county in the Commonwealth is required to have some type of HazMat services, whether a county team or a contracted team.
Okay.
It has been proven throughout the state that in the populated areas, it's very beneficial to have county teams or those teams that are covering that specific area. There's places up north where there's a contract company that's covering something like Jason, Eagle Tone, 12 counties, 18 counties, which is just insane, but it's population based also. Like that's, the population up there is far less than what it is down here, far less busier than it is down here in our area of the state.
Okay. If you have those, the names of those counties, not now, but I'd appreciate a list of those, because I told Bob I'm rather visual, and so I started a map, and the Southwest has a large number of counties, but Clarion, I think, some had it on, some didn't, and I don't know if that's a recent departure or...
There's a list on PEMA's website, but I'll most certainly get that for you.
Okay.
That's easily accessible by anybody.
Okay.
But I will get that for you.
All right. All right. I'd just like to finish, if there's no visual map, I'd like to finish that. It helps me to understand.
Yeah, there's a visual map.
Okay.
It's on PEMA's website.
Okay.
But
'Cause
I'll get it for you
Okay.
within the next few days and forward.
Okay. That's one of the things I asked for from day one. So.
But as far as, correct me if I'm wrong, but priority is in responses, you still want to get there first, because it doesn't make sense to start cleaning up anything until you stop it or contain it.
State law requires 2 hours from the time you're notified to be on scene. By having teams like ours, where they're either government or very close to it, you provide a much higher level of service. We are never, it never takes us more than a few minutes to get out the door, and then travel time, whatever it is. So, we're always well under the state required minimum and providing a much better service. And geography in those rural areas, that it could be a long way. Any other questions before I move on to just? Okay. So some of the key points that I want to talk about that we're trying to structure into this draft agreement. It's a 1-year term that would auto renew for 4 additional 1-year terms, for a total of 5 years. 90-day exit clause, talking about protecting Lebanon County. If for some reason we determine that this isn't working or that we can't provide the level of service that we promised, we need to make sure we're well protected. And a 90-day kind of no questions asked exit clause will be included. And Lancaster understands our position and they respect that. Lancaster County has a HazMat station that's county owned. They have a whole bunch of equipment that's either task force or county owned that stayed when their contractor vacated. All that equipment they're going to allow us to use with the intent of basically setting that station up as a substation in Lancaster County. They will take on the financial burden of maintaining all of that, but it provides a remote location as we are able to onboard responders from Lancaster County. They can go there. That also benefits Lebanon County, where now if there's a big incident happening with us, we've got Lancaster-based responders getting additional equipment coming to help us. So that mutually beneficial piece really comes into play here. Lebanon County will handle all the invoicing for all the calls in Lancaster County. We operate based off of billing for services, and we operate on a 8-county task force regional rate schedule. That's been in place for as long as the task force has been in place, as far as I know.
Yeah.
That doesn't change.
That doesn't change. Lancaster County is one of our task force counties, so business as usual there. Lancaster County DPS, which is the DES equivalent in Lancaster County, their employees are going to participate on the team with us, which gives us additional paid people that will both respond to Lebanon County calls and help us in Lancaster County. So a call that happens in Lancaster County frequently is a duty officer only call, where you just go out and say, yep, this is what needs to happen, here's the phone numbers to call, let us know if you need anything else. A lot of times that will be handled by a Lancaster County employee operating underneath our Lebanon County HazMat umbrella, but it won't require any actual physical resources coming from Lebanon County.
I do have a question on that one. Are the commissioners paying for this team from Lancaster County, whoever's?
No. The DPS employees from Lancaster?
Yes.
No. No, they're employees of Lancaster County. Lancaster County pays them.
So the commissioners are Lancaster County.
Are we talking about this board, or, I'm sorry, I'm not following.
In Lancaster County, are the commissioners in their budget paying for the employees that are coming here?
Yes.
Their commissioner's not aware of that. Alice, I had a conversation with her. And that's why, that's one of the biggest confusions that I have.
I have not spoken to their board. I
Okay.
operate through my counterpart down there. I will bring that to his attention.
Yeah, because I asked her like 2 times, 3 times. I said, are you sure you're not paying for people to be part of our team? And respond. And she said no. And I'm like, that's not my understanding. So there is some confusion, and we have to make sure all the commissioners on both counties are on the same page.
Well, and at this point, we're still operating mutual aid, so all this being built into the agreement, becomes very clear.
If the question is in the present moment, the answer is no. Because you're responding in a mutual aid
Correct.
environment.
But we were talking about the joinder, and
Okay.
I asked if they would continue to pay for that. And she said,
The draft I'd like to put together includes that, because that has been the conversation.
okay,
If they kick back, then that can be a negotiation piece.
okay.
But
All right,
no.
I'm just sharing, because I told you I wanted to have the full picture, and so I trust her to be straight with me. So apparently she's just not aware of what's being proposed.
That might be the case.
Okay.
The purpose of today is to have this conversation and
Yeah.
make sure that I capture these things in a draft agreement that then goes to the respective solicitors and insurance companies and then boards for review. So
And that goes, for me, that goes to liability, and that's why I want to be sure that it's not hidden from anybody, not intentionally, but that they are aware of what is expected.
I will talk to my counterpart and make
Okay.
sure that he's aware of that concern.
All right,
This is a public meeting, so maybe she'll see it through this media.
well, we can't count on that,
No, but I said name,
yeah.
that she'll hear what concerns are.
And like I said, the language will be included in the draft that I'm going to build, and that all their commissioners would review that draft just like this board. And
All you can be expected is to make them aware that that might be an issue, and they need to communicate better if it is.
We've already started actively engaging public safety agencies in Lancaster County in hopes that if this agreement comes to fruition, that we can build some partnerships down there to help us. Got a lot of positive feedback so far, which is encouraging, and that also mutually beneficial. You know, these agencies can help us for Lebanon County calls as well. You know, in the interest of making sure it's very clear that our intent is the wrong way to say that. You know, our primary objective is always Lebanon County. We will make sure that we protect Lebanon County's response capabilities at all times. That means that we're never going to send everything to Lancaster County. We're always going to have response capabilities and personnel staying back in Lebanon. Lancaster County supplementing our staff is what makes this possible, and Lancaster County partnerships. Now, Lancaster County is going to cover any costs associated with preparing vehicles and response capabilities that are specific to Lancaster County. So there's going to be no out-of-pocket expense for us. And you know, just as the last bullet point I have on this list is that we're going to make sure that, because it's a big one, we're going to make sure that we spend quite a bit of time running this through our respective insurance agencies and getting all feedback and addressing all concerns. So the next step for me is to hearing of the feedback and try and get a draft agreement put together to start working through the process. At this point, what questions or feedback should I take into consideration?
Well, again, in the interest of transparency, the other question I have is, will the entire crew that was under the Lancaster independent kind of group in that substation, will that entire crew be coming on board with Lebanon?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay, because I didn't know if they were the ones covering the insurance for the other team members, or.
I am not privy to all the details of what is happening.
Okay.
But I do know that there are discussions between Lancaster and that agency, and we have been told that at this point, they're not a part of the equation.
They are not. Okay.
Like I say, my one big concern is that we would lock ourselves into a long-term agreement without the ability to walk away if it in fact didn't work out. And I see that's at the top of your list there, and that's addressed. That's would have been my biggest concern. You know, as long as Matt, you know, reads the final language, and you know that we have that ability to walk away if in fact it doesn't, because there's always an element of risk in anything you do that's different. But again, I go back to I think it's incumbent upon all of us to look at finding better ways to do what we need to do to protect our communities. And I think this is very sound judgment on your part, and well put together.
And I will note, I was waiting until after the meeting today to reach out to my counterpart in Lancaster County to initiate the discussions, to begin that process of working with their board through their solicitor so that we can exchange a draft agreement between the two of us that's acceptable to both of the boards, both this board and in Lancaster County. The other thing too, I just wanted, and I don't take away from question time, but I'm curious with regard to numbers, if you could maybe clarify the number of people with Lebanon County, the number of people that would be assisting with from Lancaster County's end, and then if we're going to incorporate into the agreement a requirement that X number of people remain in Lebanon County at all times, I think that seems to be one of the things that is one of the maybe concerns that we want to address during the negotiation phases. What is it from an emergency services perspective? What would be an acceptable number to retain here at all times in the event that something happens on 78 or 81?
That's dynamic.
Okay.
And there are, so on paper we have how many? 20 rostered. That doesn't mean 20 people are available, and that's where the operations chief is constantly monitoring that. So trying to define the exact number of people that should stay behind is probably not an accurate way for us to ensure services in Lebanon County. It's more appropriate for you knowing who's available and who isn't to make that decision at the time.
And there's no, in looking at both the state statute and then in your
surplus.
Yeah, sorry. Is there a I assume there's no minimum requirement for, each county has to have a team, an assigned team. That team could be 2 people, that team could be 100 people. Is there a statute, do you know? That's something I can look into too, just to
10.
make sure. It's 10, okay.
10.
Okay. But that doesn't mean 10 people per county.
It doesn't
Yeah.
mean 10 technicians. It
Okay.
could be, so the only things that are required, positions required at a hazmat incident that is covered under 165 is that is an incident commander and a safety officer.
Okay.
The functions of the hazmat team are risk-based, and it all depends on what they're faced. And that will determine what level of responder is required.
Okay.
All of our, except for 1 member, 2 members are technicians, very dynamic. We do have mutual aid companies up here that assist us, that train with us, and we're, as the director said, building that capability in Lancaster if this goes further.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That answered my question.
Can you talk a little bit more about the current mutual aid agreements that we have in place? Because we have that exposure right now. If there's a major incident in Palmyra with a train derailment, and all of our resources that we have are there, you know, and we may be drawing resources from other counties through mutual aid.
Yeah.
And if something, you know, and a half an hour later happens in Newmanstown, we have limit, and there are still other counties to respond, so that we're in that situation now, and we help each other, and that doesn't change in the future, correct?
It doesn't change, and it's probably worth noting that, you know, us responding to Lancaster's not new. Under that mutual aid agreement, we've been doing that for years. And other counties help us, we help other counties. There's no way to prepare for everything. And you do that through mutual aid. You expand your abilities, and when you need additional manpower, highly trained manpower, call the next closest team. We've used Perks, we've used Dolphin, we've used Lancaster. We have relationships with all of our neighbors, and that'll continue.
Can you tell me how many, on an average year, how many calls for hazmat come in Lebanon County? How many come in Lancaster County?
On average for Lebanon County, it's what was last year, 32?
Yeah,
32. It was as high as 76.
And what is the range in Lancaster?
Around the same, if not less. Actual team dispatch calls where the team is required.
Seriously?
Mhm.
That's hard to understand because of the double mileage, double population, etc., that they would have the same number as us.
This is the information that we're getting from Lancaster DPS.
Wow.
And it's, I mean, we've done how many actual calls under mutual aid since?
Since this,
Yeah.
1,
Since
where the
July.
team, since
One.
July, 1 where the team was actually on scene and handling the call. There's been, the rest have been duty officer calls, and 3 of those duty officer calls are where they've actually been on scene.
Okay.
And I think, Jason, if I'm not mistaken, 2 of those were by the Lancaster
Yes.
County person.
Yes.
And how many in Lebanon County in that period? Since July 1?
Where we had 4, 5 actual team calls since.
All time. I can get you accurate numbers, but all time.
Yeah, if you would.
Well,
Curious.
if I may, I do want to acknowledge and thank Bob for spending a lot of time with me, getting me to this point, because there were so many questions. And, you know, I still come up with some more as I've shared today. But you were courteous, and I do want to acknowledge that you truly are trying to do a good job for Lebanon County. I just, to support something, I have to be 100% educated as much as I can, or as close to that 100% as I can, so that I can try and make a good decision, at least from my perspective, for Lebanon County as well. So thank you.
Hey, Bob, back to that mutual agreement for 1 second. Explain why beyond the mutual agreement that currently exists, why there's a necessity to actually enter into this 1-year agreement that is aside from the mutual aid agreement.
So mutual aid is intended to be temporary. The whole purpose of it is to provide service for a relatively short period of time to fill a void. So the obligation to have a HazMat team is on Lancaster County, and that can't be satisfied through mutual aid alone. So the need for this agreement is to fill that obligation, that legal obligation.
Gotcha. I also had a couple others. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead.
About the fee, is that a set fee for the year, or is that a per call? Is that based on a per call fee and what that cost might incur?
Because it's still in negotiations, several pieces here. There is going to be some sort of a retainer that's included with this agreement, as well as a program to recover costs that we can't collect for. So if we go down to a call, let's say the responsible party ran away and we have nobody to collect for, this agreement will be structured to make sure that Lancaster County makes us whole, that we don't have any out-of-pocket costs for them. The fees for services, though, we bill that to whoever caused the HazMat incident.
Sure.
And that could, as long as that individual pays, that covers all of our costs all over.
Right. Yeah.
If they don't, that's when Lancaster County will step in and make sure that we'll be whole.
So has the annual fee been determined yet? If
No,
so-
it's not.
And then is the 90-day clause, is that reciprocal? Can they walk away as well?
Yes.
If they decide we want to go back and hire
If I
somebody?
could comment, again, I spent a good 15 of my professional years at the hospital. My role was to coordinate physician contracts, about 250 physicians in our community with insurance companies. And we like to structure agreements like this that were 1 year renewable. It kind of makes both parties behave and make sure the other party is happy, because you know, if in fact we find the fees aren't adequate, you know, we give them a heads up near the renewal date to say, hey, unless we can address this, we're not going to be able to renew. So that's a real good way to structure an agreement.
Do you have any concerns about, with that 2-hour state requirement to be on site within 2 hours, and Lancaster being so large as it is, of getting to a site in 2 hours?
No. You know, to get from here to the most southern point of Lancaster is about an hour. I can't see any issues there. However, we will structure the agreement to allow us to utilize mutual aid if necessary. So if we're tied up on a call in Lebanon County, we're going to reserve the right to basically call another HazMat team to cover our obligation in Lancaster County.
And the 20 people that Gary mentioned, that's Lebanon County people. The organization that was doing it, as you said, those people are out. And then how many existing Lancaster County HazMat employees, if they're actually, that's the terminology, how many would be available to respond? Like, how many may potentially come to Lebanon County, realizing this call is separate?
I don't know the answer to that yet, because I think this agreement will probably come with some sort of conversation on their side about who they're going to get trained and what that number could look like. For us, it's most beneficial having somebody there who's able to handle the day-to-day duty officer stuff. The full team responses, if they're able to provide 2 people or 5 people, either is going to help, but we're going to rely more on the partnerships we're able to build with Lancaster County public safety agencies.
Right, and we previously discussed when we reported, you talked about a 2-month temporary thing.
Yeah.
Are we looking at October 1st to maybe have this in place if possible, or what's the timeline
So
look like?
we originally agreed to cover them under mutual aid with the goal of trying to have an agreement in place by September. That timeline's obviously been stretched a little bit. That agreement was more about making sure that there was progress and we weren't just doing this under mutual aid forever. October's probably realistic if everything moves quickly.
To have an answer one way or the other.
Yeah. And feel free to chime in and correct me if I'm.
Yeah, I like I said, I'm gonna start the conversation rather quickly with my counterpart in Lancaster County, and so this is something that I think both counties are eager to get to a point where we at least, sit down. I know you had discussions with your counterpart, but I think now, after we've talked with the board, I think now it's time we maybe formalize some of the things that you and the director of Lancaster County have
I'm
Do you-
hearing correctly, that means you're volunteering to write the draft.
That should be the case.
That's right. I'm gonna start the conversation with the Lancaster County solicitor, and we're gonna see how it goes from there.
Sounds good.
Do you know for a fact if Clarion County was in a joinder in the southwest and pulled out, and if they did, why?
We have very little interaction with the western part of the state. I have no idea. I
Okay.
didn't even know they were a part of the region, so.
Yeah, okay.
Matt, you have a question?
Do you have any idea who's gonna be in charge? I mean, are you guys gonna have a commission with Lancaster as to running HazMat? Are you guys gonna be in charge?
We would
How's
be.
that structure going?
So in charge is there's multiple different layers when it comes to in charge. So in charge of the call, as far as who's in charge on the scene, that's us. As the contractor, if this agreement's in place, we are in charge of that scene. The Lancaster County LAPC is responsible for ensuring that there is HazMat coverage. And the Lancaster County EMA, underneath their DPS, is going to be.
You wanna define LEPC, you're throwing a bunch of acronyms.
Yeah, sorry, local emergency planning committee. Then Lancaster County EMA the emergency management coordinator is the one who has and then delegates the authority to dispatch a HazMat team. So we would be deriving that authority from that person at Lancaster EMA, and that dispatch would be by protocol, and they would have the right to change that protocol if necessary. So they would be in charge of when we go.
So how are you gonna prioritize calls? Like, say if you were to get one from Lancaster and one for Lebanon, how are you gonna distribute?
Now we have resources to cover both.
So if the call originates in Lancaster County, Lebanon County is still the chief on that call?
Yes.
Oh.
You look confused, Matt, sorry.
I am, because there's still a question in my mind about day to day, not just on the calls themselves. You know, hiring new personnel, maybe considering getting new equipment. Who would factor that? Would you have to come back to these counties?
Yeah, our team is
Yeah.
Lebanon County's team, nothing's changing there.
Right.
They're just contracting us to provide services. So
But if
any
you-
employees that we hire, any equipment that we purchase, that's all Lebanon County.
But if you need to purchase equipment for Lancaster, are you gonna come to them and ask them to?
If Lancaster, if it's something that is Lancaster specific, Lancaster is gonna purchase it, they're gonna own it, they're gonna maintain it, they're gonna allow us to use it.
So if Lancaster has their own personnel and their own equipment, and you guys have your own equipment, you just sharing personnel?
Yeah, essentially.
Well, I guess then my question is, you know, are you gonna be hiring in Lancaster to fill any kind of quota for extra
So
personnel?
that's not our role in this.
Okay.
If they decide that they want to hire people to help assist with this, and that becomes part of the agreement, then they can do that. But at this point, that has not been a part of the discussion.
This is, correct me if I'm wrong too, Bob, but this is analogous to situations where, like, for example, Union Township contracts with Leona Borough to provide for police services. The difference here is that statutorily, Lancaster County, as Lebanon and the other 66 counties, are required to have a designated entity, and it had been HazMat 2, the private company in Lancaster County. So it's very similar in that the structure of Lebanon County is remaining the same. It's just with regard to equipment, with regard to personnel, the discussion is just if something happens, we then respond and we are designated.
I understand, but in your analogy as well, you know, Palmyra and Anvil, you know, join their police departments, but they have a commission overseeing all of that. So I'm wondering who's overseeing HazMat?
That's a
into
totally
this?
different thing. So they've joined into a regional entity.
Right.
We're
This
not
is
joining
not
into a
a
regional entity. We are Lebanon County Special Operations covering Lancaster County.
So if I could,
Basically, a service agreement.
Correct.
if you don't mind, Matt,
Go
can
ahead.
I try to expand on your question
Yeah.
maybe? So if there's attrition, which there has to be in the Lancaster ranks, who's selecting replacements? Who's advertising if need be, because you're, you know, you're gonna be up here doing this thing, and I don't think it's just gonna be, well, when the tones go, you go. There's a whole lot of administration that goes on in between. Are they gonna maintain somebody that's gonna continue to keep the ranks filled, continue to recruit volunteer? Where's all that falling, if that's answering Matt's question? Some of it, basically, there's a lot of admin that goes with
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Who's doing that?
Yeah, we're doing, so, Lancaster employees are Lancaster employees. If they are being replaced by Lancaster, we're not a part of that. If the agreement specifies that we're gonna get the use of 3 employees, then that's what the agreement specifies. If it just says, the discussion at this point has been, it just says that Lancaster County employees that are HazMat technicians are permitted to assist us, to be a part of this team. And that Lancaster County will compensate them or do whatever needs to happen. So if those employees leave and they hire somebody else, that's a Lancaster County issue. There are no discussions of hiring HazMat dedicated employees through Lancaster County.
And this would be one of those examples, again, to why the agreement is structured the way it is. Again, if they're not acting in good faith to maintain an appropriate complement of employees, it's grounds to put them on notice to say, hey, you can't fill these voids, then we're gonna have to law. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm still not 100% clear. We have a HazMat fund when we collect amounts that go into our fund. If you're billing for it, does it go into our fund or does it go into Lancaster? And how much is in Lancaster's? And, you know, is that going to dissipate and come into our fund, or what's going on there?
So we bill for it, it comes into us. We reimburse, so if Lancaster County has Lancaster County equipment on that call, we reimburse them at the task force rate for whatever we're able to collect. And that goes into, I would assume, their HazMat fund as well. But we just cut the check to them at that point.
We have no exposure, we're just a pass-through.
Correct.
So we're not retaining any of the funds you're billing for?
We're retaining all of it except for what we bill for on their behalf. So if a Lancaster County owned piece of equipment is on that call, we would bill the task force rates for that and then reimburse them.
So much a mile or something of that nature?
It's mileage plus hourly.
Mileage plus
So
hours?
let me play that out. You're sitting here in 2029, and in the 4th year of the agreement, and they have, their response is 10 or 20% of the total response in terms of the numbers. Say there's 10 that respond, I'm just gonna use numbers here to make it easy, okay? Say 10 go to the call, 8 of them are ours, 2 are theirs. So you're saying, according to this, they get 20% of the reimbursement for the call? No?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how we do billing is, as the director mentioned, is the cost recovery with the task force. So we're billing for apparatus that responds on scene by hour by the time that they're dispatched. From the time that they're dispatched to the time that they're cleaned up and cleared and available, the clock's on for that apparatus to be billed. So for example, we'll take it to Lebanon County. We have a call up on the interstate. Whatever apparatus responds from us, whether it's the squad or the rescue, or both, we're billing for that. Whatever fire apparatus is up there that's assisting us, that requested us, or any other fire apparatus that is up on the scene prior to us, once we're dispatched, we start billing for them also. Personnel-wise, our personnel by the hour are being billed. Equipment, whatever equipment that is allowable as far as consumables, we bill for. So when, after the call is completed, and all the paperwork's done, we start the billing process and we bill for all of that, all the resources that we use. When we get paid from that, what happens is, what I billed for, let's say, engine 10, right? When we collect for engine 10, that gets passed on to engine 10. Whatever we use that is Lebanon County's, we retain. Plus, there's, per the cost recovery with the task force, there's a 15% administration fee that stays with us. And that covers things like the billing process, the collection process, restocking, the report, right, all the stuff we can't bill for directly. So take that to now with Lancaster, which has happened before, on both ends. We go down there to assist them. They, in the past, they would bill with put our apparatus on their invoice, bill, collect, reimburse us. How it's happened in the past with Lebanon County, with Lancaster County coming to us, we bill for their apparatus, we collect, we reimburse them what was collected for their apparatus. That would be the same thing that's going on. Nothing is changing with the cost recovery, the collection of the invoices, and then the subsequent reimbursement.
Which I think is makes sense if that is a constant 50-50. But let's say as time goes, Lancaster has less participation, and we're doing an 80-20 response, and that's what the invoicing then ends up being. To me, at some point, Lancaster's resources, Lancaster's reimbursement was too low, become too low for them to maintain and replace equipment and inventories. Yes or no?
No, because the rate is based on what responds from them.
So are we running down there and jumping in the seat and using their vehicle and then billing for their vehicle for them? But then we're operating their equipment, and then we're billing on their behalf for their equipment.
But the personnel hours we bill
Okay.
for our personnel.
Okay.
So even if
Probably
we,
take a lot of time
even
to
if
sort
we
through this,
invoice,
but it
even
feels-
if we invoice for their equipment that was used, okay, there's still that administration fee that's on that,
15%.
that comes to us.
Understand. I'm not worried about us in the short term.
Mhm.
I'm more concerned about at some point in which Lancaster doesn't have enough to keep up their end of the equipment and supply inventory, because just as a practical matter, the more time they don't have a team, probably the less participation they're gonna have locally. And I'm just, maybe that's incorrect, but it seems logical to me. And so eventually, don't they run into where their revenue for calls has gone down to the point where they don't have enough to keep up, or again, equipment and so on. We're good. We're getting an extra 15%.
For calls, yes, but that's not the only stream of revenue for their local emergency planning committee.
Okay.
It's also tier 2 money. So they have a wider base to collect as far as tier 2 money. And what that is, as you know, is we bill for every chemical that's on site, plus we have to, for those that have extremely hazardous substances, we have to bill to write the plan, because we have to have a plan for that. So that's revenue that's not even in play on our end here, that they would have for their HazMat program.
And again, I'm gonna go back to the point of that's why you structure it the way you do, so it's not a 10-year, we're locked in, and you don't even set it for 5 or 3, it's 1 year, renewable with both.
I get that, and I appreciate that too. But we have to be mindful of, before we get to that point, if we get to that point, that finances are one of those points where we say, wait a minute, this is going to reach a point of where potentially funds dry up. I understand. I appreciate that they're getting other sources of revenue. It's how we were able to get this most recent purchase for a truck. You're not just getting reimbursement, you're getting other funds that you can set aside and put toward capital. I guess that's what I'm saying. Are they, is there a point at which a few years down the road where, because they don't have the full team that they're billing for, you follow?
I see where you're going. It's something I'll bring up to them, because we don't.
And the answer
Don't
may
get me
be
wrong.
the county has to kick in.
My focus has been very much Lebanon County, and I really haven't thought about stuff like that.
And
How
that
they
we
intend to maintain that.
Think
is-
about, we can create language to
I made a note of it though, and I'll discuss it with them and make sure that it's on their
Well, the
radar.
90-day is the answer. We can say, look, this doesn't look like it's working on paper, we're out of here. Or Lancaster County Commissioners could say, hey, you know, we need to throw $500,000 into this fund because it hasn't kept up. I mean, those are answers.
Right. It's something for them to be considering.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I do have another question. You mentioned the 1990 federal and state requirements for HazMat. Is there any difference between a Class 4 county and a Class 3, which we will move into soon? Or, I don't know if Lancaster is a 3 or 2, but I know they're not a 1. But whatever class they are, with the different classes, are there different?
The short answer is no, and the HazMat team is certified to one of 3 different levels in Pennsylvania. We're a Type 2 team, which is the same thing that Lancaster County's team was. They don't scale based on county size. They're certified to a functional level. Capability. Yeah. So we are functionally the same thing as what Lancaster had.
So beyond the coverage of these hazmat incidents, is the goal here to make a profit or just to be revenue neutral?
The goal here is to expand our abilities as well. So the additional manpower that we could get out of this for calls, the additional equipment that will be available for us will help Lebanon County as well. And we're going to make money off of this, which will help us sustain our program.
I would think competency levels would be stronger and, things like that, because of the frequency of calls, that's gonna help.
It does, and this brings in new interest as well. New volunteers, hopefully new paid staff. It will help bolster our team.
Could you potentially execute this sort of agreement with, say, Berks County or Schuylkill County or something? Or is it just one county that you love?
So you could. We are not at the point where we can take on more than one county. And 5 years from now, maybe. And maybe 5 years from now, this becomes more of a regional concept where another county joins that regional program. Regional model looks more like you still have your individual stations, but everybody specializes in something, so you're reducing overhead and distributing that footprint a little bit to capture more people. That would be beneficial for everybody. So there's lots of opportunity there. But right now, if somebody else came to us, I don't think it would pass the litmus test.
And
for
right
us.
now, we're not the only one in a regional concept. We're covering another county. Dauphin County covers Perry and Schuylkill. York covers Adams. Cumberland County covers Franklin. So this isn't the first time that we're not writing a new book here. So we're just helping it out. Like Lancaster helped us out before. So
This is being done a little bit differently though.
Right, yes.
Where it is much more in cooperation with Lancaster County and Lancaster County resources than those other agreements are. So, which we see as mutually beneficial.
Those are not by agreement? Franklin and Cumberland, or?
the other
How does this differ from those?
In that we're doing it more in cooperation with Lancaster County resources and assets and their DPS. Versus just saying we'll take care of it. And
So Franklin has no team.
Correct.
Schuylkill County has
Schuylkill has
a team.
Perry doesn't.
Perry doesn't, so then they contract with another county team.
What was that other one? Dauphin covers Perry.
Schuylkill.
Do they have, so they have agreements with, so Cumberland has an agreement with Franklin?
Mhm.
Okay. Do we have those, are we getting those?
I can go.
York with the Adams.
I'll reach out to my counterpart.
Do you already have those or no?
Well, before, Matt, you do any of your legwork, again, we'll leave time for questions, but I would just like to propose, again, we're not ready to make any kind of decision on this. That's gonna depend on, the devil's always in the detail, and can we structure an agreement that addresses all these points, and if there's any others we need to address. But before Matt goes and does that legwork, is there anyone here, based on what we've heard so far, that is saying, stop, I don't like this idea, it's, we didn't address enough, or can he proceed with doing his legwork to try to work out a language that Matt could recommend to us?
Well, I would just like to say that I think communication up front is expected, no matter what, because that hasn't been happening. And I have to do an awful lot of legwork, and we're all in responding to if there's a disaster. But I was curious, how many, can you tell me where the most calls are to in both counties? For instance, are ours on 72, 81, 322?
Yeah, 81, all 81.
And what is it Route 30 in Lancaster, or where are the most calls for Lancaster County?
Turnpike's a different animal.
I don't know that we have a direct answer for that. We could probably find out.
I can tell you where we responded before, just with them covering in this aspect. It's been the Leola area, the New Holland. There's been times where it was just up in Elizabethtown. There's times where it's over in Cocalico. So it's Raffo Township. So it's spread out a bit.
What was the first one?
Leola.
Leola. And what routes are those? Are they connected, or?
70, we take 72 down. It depends what it is. 72 to 772. There's route. I don't think there's one time that we were on Route 30. Well, maybe there was one time we were on Route 30, but where we're positioned at with our station, where our equipment is, it's an easy jump down 72. We're in Lancaster County.
Unless the Renaissance Fair is having an event. There you sit.
And we can, up on the interstate, we can say it's going to be difficult to get to, and there's an accident and it shuts down the entire interstate. There's all these variables that, as the director said earlier, it's very tough to cover every single externality that could be out there. But we do our best on the risk-based response model.
And you said not the Turnpike. Who covers the Turnpike?
They have a private contractor.
They call us when it's an emergency, when it is going to leave the Turnpike, where there's a possibility that's going to leave the Turnpike because the Turnpike is private property.
You mean the incident? The incident's gonna say it's gonna spill over.
Yes,
So to speak,
yes,
into
yes.
the municipality, then yeah.
If it threatens to leave their property or it does leave their property, that's when we get involved.
To answer Commissioner Litz's question, 100% in favor of proceeding with your investigating this opportunity.
Thank you.
And that's what I would say. Conceptually, I think it's something we need to explore. And if we can find language that's suitable, and Matt can come to us with a recommendation, I'm in favor of taking that next step.
I'm still learning, so I don't want to commit. I mean, you investigate all you want, but I still have to hear.
And we're not here asking
Yeah.
for a yes vote to a contract or anything like that. I just want to make sure that, we are addressing concerns, that we understand the concerns. And if you want to sit down with me again and spend more time going through this, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you.
Commissioner, once I get the draft, I'll reach out to some of my counterparts.
Yeah, and get some of those answers. That'd be a great help.
Do we have any additional questions? This issue isn't finished, but again, I applaud you for bringing it forward. I think you're doing the right thing in that regard. If we can create an agreement that we think is mutually beneficial and limits our risk, I think that's a plus for the taxpayers.
Our next step is going to be to get this draft agreement in concert with Matt. And once you guys are happy with it, we'll move through our insurance, make sure that they're happy with it. Same thing with Lancaster County's insurance, and then we'll get a draft to both respective boards for review. There certainly could be changes that come as a result of that review, but at least we'll have something formal in front of you to have discussion on.
Any idea of the timeline?
He said October.
My part and Matt's part is probably 2 weeks. I have no idea how long insurance could take. Maybe 3.
And what happens when, again, you were into September with the other agreement, when you initially did this, will it just continue
Yep.
into October, you'll just keep floating, or, you don't have to sign or do anything, because is it technically then still under mutual?
It's just a standard mutual aid agreement. Yeah.
Still a
So,
mutual aid.
if at some point this became stale, I think we would have to notify Lancaster County that we can no longer continue to operate our mutual aid. But as long as there's forward momentum, I think it's appropriate to keep doing what we're doing.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good work.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Do you guys have anything else?
Hey Laura, before you, I hear you mentioning Sean's name about what, did he win something?
Yeah, Sean won,
In and out.
he won Brett Michaels concert tickets.
Oh, he's coming.
He called in.
I heard his name mentioned, I sent it a message.
Do we have any?
Yeah, we had an hour.
But I mean,
So we got
the
2
public
tickets.
meeting.
I'll
Yeah.
ask him if he's gonna take me. and-